recording right now.
Yep. I also hit record on my side. Yep. So, hi guys, my name is Alexei Novitsky, and I'm here with Samuel Chong. And I believe you've been doing a lot of work on a book called The Theopa Prophecies. You've got it translated into Chinese, and it's a top seller in not only in China, but also, what was it?
In
Taiwan?
Taiwan, yes.
Very cool. Yeah. So do you want
Yes.
to tell them a little bit about yourself real quick, or?
Yes, professionally, I'm a certified court interpreter and a Chinese translator, and I reside in Los Angeles. I found a book in 2014 when I was searching for books on ET contactees, wanting to find out what ETs revealed to us. It turns out that this book revealed a lot of the mysteries of the paranormal, such as who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt, for what purposes, what happens in the Bermuda Triangle, what about the human energy fields, auras, that some people can see? What are ghosts? Where do we come from? Where did we come from? And also the stories in the Bible, because I find that to be fascinating because it talks about the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan, that people can look up and visit. So it seems that this book has a lot of specific verifiable facts that people can look into. It also mentions about the hydrogen engine that we need to commercialize because we invented that long time ago. It's just been suppressed by the special interest groups. So this is a topic that I think, Alex, you might want to elaborate more about it.
Well, I know that I was involved with a hydrogen fuel cell type project about 10 years ago, and it just went quiet. They were powering a lawnmower with that type of energy, and literally you're just using water, and the output is water, and clean air, and it's cold to the touch. So instead of emitting all these carbon emissions and things like that, well, we could just be using water to power all of our vehicles. So I think that's great that that's one of the things that comes up in the book.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
theoretically, if you find the right vibrational frequency, you can just use the resonant frequency to break the covalent bond between hydrogen and oxygen atoms and of water molecules, so that you can use the hydrogen as an energy source, clean energy source.
yeah, the hydrogen gas, right?
Yeah.
It's very flammable, so easy to turn into energy.
Yes.
Um, That's very cool. One of the things that really struck me, I watched your interview you did with Jeffrey Mishlove,
Yes.
was how they focus on the importance of spirituality.
Yes.
I feel like that's also so not only do we get access to technologies, but maybe one of the reasons, I'm just speculating, maybe one of the reasons why we don't have access to these technologies right now is because we're not spiritually developed enough. As others would say, we're gorillas with shotguns, you know?
Well, I think if the people are spiritually advanced enough, they would just are open to the idea that commercializing such clean technologies would make everyone much better and creating a better future, a better world. But they're not spiritually advanced enough to have this kind of open-hearted initiative. In fact, I know for a fact that the scientists long have discovered or invented machines or automotives that run on water, like the ones invented by Stanley Meyer in the 70s. And we do need to focus more on the spiritual growth and spiritual development, because that's what is life about learning different lessons, spiritual lessons, through different reincarnations.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I think one of the focuses of this little conversation we're having was about the book that you've been working on and that you've made popular over in China and Taiwan. What do you want to say about it? What do you think are some of the most compelling parts of the story?
Well, I think there are a lot of compelling parts in the book. One is about advanced knowledge about how to improve our physical health, knowledge about how to improve our environment, knowledge about the ET's involvement in the ancient histories of our past, and also during World War II, knowledge about why they haven't really appeared in front of the White House or in public, and why we are not allowed to explore the universe or maybe just to land on the moon again. So the book actually answers a lot of the questions if people just read into that. And I don't know which questions, which aspect you want to go into.
Honestly, I think they're all really cool topics. What my work primarily focuses on, it goes from modern accepted physics all the way to spirituality. So the thing that I like to end most of my discussions with is the spirituality side of the things, and but then how that translates into, well, why aren't we allowed to go back to the moon, right? Doesn't that somewhat relate with one another? Or
Definitely. We did go to the moon 50 years ago, and landed on the moon, but we saw something that was not allowed to be broadcasted on Earth. And we were actually warned out from the moon because using analogy, if you visit like a forest in China and see two groups of gorillas fighting against each other, would you want them to visit your beautiful mansion? You wouldn't, because it would pollute your mansion, mess everything up. Similarly, we are still having a lot of wars and issues here. We are not spiritually mature or developed enough to really behave harmoniously with other ET races in the universe. So we wouldn't be allowed to explore other civilizations on different planets, on other planets. And similarly, they wouldn't allow other ETs that weren't ready to visit us either. So we are actually kind of shielded off, which is probably a good thing for the universe until we are spiritually developed enough.
is that something that we need to do on our own, or like, right? Because we need to develop our own spirits. We can't just assume that someone else is going to give us the experiences we need. Is that
Exactly. I can give you two analogies. One is that when a parent wants to teach his child a mathematical problem, then the best way is to guide the child, the son, and to teach him the basic principles so that the son can solve the problem on his own. Not to give the answers directly to himself, otherwise he wouldn't learn much. So similarly, the ETs are guiding us with the basic principles of life and the meanings of life so that we can develop our own spirituality. Using another analogy is a story told by Danny Sheehan, the former counsel for the Disclosure Project of Dr. Stephen Greer. He says that uh, years ago there was a rare species of butterfly and surviving in Mexico. And this scientist who found the cocoon and saw that the inside the butterfly was trying to actually it was trying to come out of the cocoon and struggling. And the scientist, being a compassionate person trying to help, and he actually broke the cocoon apart so that the butterfly came out much easily. But only one problem existed: the butterfly couldn't fly. It turns out that the butterfly needed to really struggle through the struggling process in order to be able to fly on its own. So similarly, I think we need to go through the struggling process in developing our spirituality. So we wouldn't really need to rely on outside help, unless when it is absolutely necessary, then they may give us help indirectly, but we need to go through the struggling process on our own.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's one thing. I don't know if you've seen the shows I've done with Artisan Tony, but he constantly talks about how he would tell his children over and over and over certain ideas, but the children really only understand it after they experience it and they go through it and they learn themselves, right? So, I mean, is that where humanity is today? Are we in a place where we're learning that there is a spirit in a way? Like we forgot that we have spirit because of so much technology and materialism, and basically living in like a very manufactured world right now in a way. Like you're born, you're shown certain things, and that's what equals success. But is that really true success? Or are we learning that that might not be, like, is materialism success, or is that just a relative um view, I guess?
It's definitely something that's been clouding people's eyes or vision. The book, Theory of Prophecy, emphasizes the four dangers on earth. Number one being money, Number 2, politicians. Number 3, journalists and drugs. Number 4, religions. And I think everything revolves on money in nowadays. Technology, petrochemicals and energy, and also pharmaceuticals, they all want to make a profit. So sometimes the simple, effective, and inexpensive solutions don't come out of the surface. So and we can do a lot of things about it. Actually, the book gives a solution, which is to increase our knowledge about what's really going on behind the scenes, and to act concertedly in a unified fashion to rise up against tyranny and using nonviolent resistance so that people can be awakened.
It's somewhat of a touchy subject, but would you say that that a very few people own the thought processes that get implemented on the planet in a way? Like the people who say that these drugs are like when it comes to healthcare alone, you have to act a certain way, you need to take certain medicines, but those medicines are approved by bigger organizations. The same with the type of education that we receive in school. But ultimately, those are all guiding people to get a job and make money and to listen and to be almost subservient to a small ruling class in a way. So is that how money would be considered one of the greatest threats? Is that kind of what the book touches on there?
Exactly. The
Yeah.
book touches on the topics, and people need to really read into the books and to learn how to respond to the current situation. And I think the current education system has a lot of issues, and not only it is very expensive, it also brainwashes people. And I think when God created every one of us, it inserted a tiny portion of itself so that it can experience what we do in our lifetime. And we have individual liberties so that we have free will, and we can actually determine and really to direct our future for the better. It's just that we need to know that we all have sparklings of the creator.
I agree with that. I think that free will is probably so the way I like to think of it, I do think we have free will, but only so much, because you can only go so far away from the creator before just everything starts pulling you back to it, is what I've come to see. And so it's always a pacing about the perfect center is how, it's just kind of how I've come to see it. So you said that money was one of the top four. After that was
Politicians.
politicians. And why I'm just asking, why would politicians be number 2 on the list?
Well, if you look at the current world affairs, a number of people still listen to the politicians' performance on stage. They don't look at what's really happening behind the scenes. And the politicians really are mostly interested in power, money, and also prestige and re-elections. So we really need to know the essence and actually what's really happening in the front stage and also in the backstage. In the US, as we all know, the Republicans and Democrats are fighting against each other, trying to win more votes. Behind the scenes, there's a small group of people that kind of manipulates the both parties. So the parties are just like puppets, and the presidents come and go every 4 or 8 years, but those people, the deep state, and also the people behind everything, they don't come and go. They are always running everything. And a lot of people don't know about this, but gradually, I think a lot of whistleblowers are coming out and to describe what they personally experienced. And I think if people look into that, they're going to find a lot of evidence how the world is run by the politicians and the deep state.
Well, I think that relates a lot back to spirituality as well, where instead of trying to divide and conquer in a way, like I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican or something like that, it's more we're all people that are coexisting on the planet, right? So it's a step up from the materialistic, like I want to own and control, to, for example, what political party right now strives for unity? I don't think there is one, right? And so just to speak on the idea of politicians being a threat in a way, I also see them as somewhat they're always in the media. They're always on TV, and kids, the youth, are always looking at the TV and they see these people. And so when you see someone on TV, even an actor or a celebrity, you see how they act, it makes you think that that is success. And so you should act like they act in order to be successful. And so that's one of the questions. I always thought as a child, like every kid should strive to be like the president of the United States, or every kid should try to strive to be like the leader of a group. But I don't see one leader at this point in time that I would, if I had kids, that I would want them to strive to be like, because they're all, like you're saying, in a way, corrupt. They all want to control and make sure they get reelected next time. So they, in essence, are somewhat living in fear of not having a position if they don't act a certain way. It's very interesting. What was the third one on that list?
Journalists and drugs. Journalists being the people who run the media, and drugs, they mean hallucinogenic drugs.
Right. Would you want to?
Uh,
Yeah, no, because a lot of people ask me, they're like, so what do you think about taking drugs in order to reach higher levels of consciousness? And I tell them, my answer to them is that's it's not a true spiritualism at that point. You're taking a drug, you've experienced it for 5 minutes, but now you're just going to fall back into your lower self, as opposed to always being connected to those different dimensional layers. So I think that the use of drugs ultimately holds people back when it comes to experiencing those. People are very interested in DMT right now, for example. So they'll take DMT to experience maybe a denser vibration of experience, but you can do that naturally through meditation, and it'll end up being a longer experience, one that you don't disconnect from. You stay connected to that denser realm, and you also connect to a less dense realm. That's just the way I've come to see it. And so when you take these drugs, you basically are limiting your growth. So is that kind of the same message that he's presenting?
yeah, it's the same message. What happens is that we have our physical body, we also have our astral body. The astral body is connected to a higher self, and that's by nature, and this is the natural evolution. By taking DMT or hallucinogenic drugs, what they do is that they take the astral body away from the physical body and putting them into a false paradigm, which the astral body is not supposed to be in. And that's actually not going to be very good. That's actually going to be harmful for the astral body, because this is not natural, and it creates a lot of noise and false hallucinations. So this is something. This is going to cause a lot of damages to the astral body down the road, or in future generations when people reincarnate. So drugs are going to be more damaging than sometimes the physical harm that we experience, because we live to learn different lessons, and the lessons are given to our astral body, which are given to our higher self. So this is how we move up the ladder. If we keep taking drugs, then our astral body is going to take a few generations or reincarnations to be able to go back to the original state. So that's the waste of time, and that's not to be beneficial.
No, I see what you're saying. And I don't think many people that are taking the drugs think that. They're not even aware of that whole concept, because not only does it somewhat destabilize your physical material body, but what you're saying is over reincarnation cycles, it destabilizes your astral self as well.
That's right.
And it gives you false senses of perception, because it's the body mixing with the astral body. It's not, in quotes, a natural process if you do it like that.
Exactly.
So you're not just damaging this lifetime, you're damaging future lifetimes as well.
Yeah. And for the ladies and people who want to look better, you're going to know that people who take hallucinogenic drugs, they age much faster than people
Right.
who don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always seen as a kid, like growing up, they'd say, hey, if you take a lot of MDMA, for example, you'll start suffering depression. But that's only within this lifetime and this one body. What I think your message is greater. Like it will affect your next lifetime and the one after that, potentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, because I see a lot of different you could say healing centers where they say, hey, let's give them DMT or let's give them ayahuasca or something like that. And people do heal. They relieve themselves of trauma, but that's where I don't know, so I'm coming at it from a as unbiased point of view as possible, where I don't know the answer, but from my understanding, you can reach those levels of awareness through meditation, and you don't need to be doing drugs.
I
Right?
have proof. Yeah, I have proof.
Yeah.
The book also talks about the human energy field or auras. So I verified with people who can see auras or human energy fields. I asked them, like, can you tell if someone takes hallucinogenic drugs? They say, yes, we can tell immediately. And I say, how so? They say that their auras or human energy fields look much uglier than people who don't take drugs. So, and this is similar to people who are alcoholic. Their auras look muddier and uglier, but people who use hallucinogenic drugs, their auras look much worse.
So just for the viewers who might not be aware of auras, an aura is like a light that somewhat shines from every single living creature. Everything has an aura, right? And so I'm just kind of assuming, based on what you're saying, if your aura looks pretty in a way, it's a very uniform, nice glow, right? But if
Yes,
you're taking like drugs all the time or something like that, it's very jagged and spiky, and it might
yes,
not be so perfect.
and the colors are much more dull and muddy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So okay. And then the fourth thing on that was, you spoke about religion was the fourth danger.
Yes. Well, when God created every one of us, it inserted a tiny portion of self to our astral body so that we can actually communicate to God, the source, the creator of the universe, directly without the intermediary or agent. So religions are actually acting as a third-party agent, trying to sway us to different directions,
Yes.
where in fact we can actually just meditate and connect to our higher self and the creator, the source, on our own, more effectively and more efficiently. And religions always distort the original meanings of the ancient scriptures. And through such distortions of wars and also killings and murders occurred in the history, that actually made me a lot of made me very sad and very dubious about the religious beliefs. So spirituality is something that we need to develop and not following a specific religious leader.
I agree with that. And I think what you said in the very beginning hits the nail on the head with the hammer in a way, where you said that it puts something. So here's source, here's you. This is
Mhm.
religion. It's like a wall that's now between your ability to connect to source or God, whatever word, creator, whatever word you want to use. And that's why one of the things that I speak on a lot is that you are the direct connection to the universe or to the greatest flow. It's not you accepted religion, then the universe, or you science, then the universe. It's a direct connection from one being to the source, to the creator. And I think that matches very well with what you're describing there. So very similar message, you know.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that this book has a lot of specific verifiable facts that people can verify and prove. And it talks about all the other different things. So I think for people who want to seek for proof, this book gives a lot of proof.
Well, and another thing with the religions too, I don't think that Jesus ever walked around saying be a Christian, right?
Right.
And like the Buddha never walked around saying be a Buddhist. They all basically taught unconditional love and forgiveness. From what
Yes.
I've gathered, that's like the number one message is love and forgive, right?
Yes.
So I think that's a really important thing to kind of let people know, hey,
Mhm.
it's good to have religions in a way, because it builds a community, and sometimes it's nice to be a part of something, but it's important to also understand that that's not everything, right?
Mhm.
That's not, it is a distorted version of a greater message. And I think it's important for people to understand that we all have these distorted views based off of all the different religions in a way. And ultimately those end up creating clashing, like different. So here you have one religion, here you have another, they believe different things. So now they clash at the boundary. Whereas we're ultimately, if you're connected directly to the source or to the creator, that's where we all connect.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to peace on earth and not being gorillas with shotguns,
Mhm.
I think that, like you're saying, that's one step right there, to get rid of that, and then to get rid of if we could get rid of drugs, that would be great as well. I mean, that'll be a bigger challenge. And then what was the one? Politicians. I I don't vote. But I'm not, many people vote because why would you ever vote for someone to tell you what to do? That confuses me to begin with. Um, having now I have to follow what this person thinks when they're an awful leader, or they have all these, they've done so many bad things in their life or something like that. I don't know why you would vote for them. And then money is definitely a challenge because we've evolved now to rely more on money and living up to standards as opposed to actually being able to hunt for food and being able to care for children. So our original source of mate selection has shifted to being controlled by money more so than a natural process. That's the way I've come to see that. So I agree with those. Those are some pretty big dangers when it comes to modern society and the future of humanity.
Exactly. Yeah. And the book also specifically mentioned about the four different council meetings in the past that intentionally distorted the original meanings of the ancient scriptures in the Bible. And the thing is that the author, Michel de Marquet, was a farmer landscaper in Australia. He didn't have a lot of education. He didn't know how to type. There was no internet back then in the 80s in Australia, but he listed so many specific facts and people can verify, such as the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. He never traveled to Japan. How would he have known about the tomb of Jesus in Japan? And that's something indicates that extraordinary information was passed on, given to him. Similarly, the explanations about how the Great Pyramids were built were so logical and so kind of make a lot of sense. And using technologies of anti-gravity and using ways to cut the huge stones, using like a supersonic vibratory systems, and they all make perfect sense. And the pyramid, according to this book, is actually an energy center that could actually capture the cosmic terrestrial energy, so that it was actually used by the ancient pharaohs to communicate with people on different planets. So I think it's a reasonable and plausible explanation.
I think so. I mean, what I end up going through in one of the books that I read is called Time Atom, and it speaks on how there's different vortices that essentially will connect. We have the delta through fast gamma as far as human perception, but it's all relative. Everything we experience is a superposition of relative vibrations. And so basically, there's less dense realms, which are more of the outer spaces, and then there's denser realms, which are more of the inner spaces. But by creating a magnetic vortex with the proper ratio, it will harmonize your awareness to an outer realm or to an inner realm. And so when it comes to the placement of all these megalithic structures, they all seem to be placed on magnetic hotspots of sorts or ley lines, right? And so that's where you have a focal point of or twisting of magnetic energies coming and interacting with the earth itself. And when I speak on the pyramids, I think that the most logical thing from a physical point of view is to think of it almost like a prism. If you hold up a crystal and you shine a light through it, it makes a rainbow, right? But that's just spreading out the different energy fields. And so the same thing could be happening with a pyramid, to where in the king's chamber or different centers, it basically filters out a lot of light and only allows certain light to enter. So that's how I think that could potentially work as an interdimensional telescope, is what I call it.
Yes.
But that allows your, go ahead, sorry.
And then the energies are absorbed and concentrated towards the top of the pyramid and projected from the top to other worlds. And they also use the pyramid to make rain. And so in ancient Egypt, there were a lot of rainfalls and floods, and this is proven by archaeologists.
Why do you think that we lost this understanding? Because we had the understanding at one point, right? But then something might have happened and now we don't. Yeah. We're relearning almost.
The book explains how we lost the knowledge. There was a great civilization that existed on Earth about 200,000 years ago until 14,500 years ago. on the continent of Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean. And people there had a lot of advanced ancient knowledge. But then suddenly, because of an earthquake, the entire continent sunk into the ocean almost overnight. So the remnants of the continent was now today the Hawaiian Islands and also Easter Island. So this is why you see the statues on Easter Island, the moas, that even with today's technology, those cannot be built very easily. So that's what happened. And also there was another continent in the Atlantic Ocean called Atlantis. And that continent also disappeared as well. Originally, the ancient knowledge was in the books of the Library of Alexandria. But after the burning destruction of the Library of Alexandria, people gradually lost the knowledge. Even though Thoth, the person who built from Atlantis, who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt, had the knowledge, but gradually we lost the knowledge.
Yeah, I think that also comes down to our materialistic ways that we have right now, and also our source of education, where we rely on Google to tell us a truth instead of going out and experiencing and learning a truth. Because, for example, say a cataclysm were to happen today. How many people know how to mine for gold, purify gold, put together a computer chip, right? How many people can build a cell phone from nothing? I think there's very few people that know all the different steps involved, right? And so maybe Thoth had it something like that. I know that were Thoth and Hermes somewhat the same. Do you know about that?
I think Thoth was actually a person. I think those are just the two names, but actually Thoth was a person from Atlantis originally, about 17,000 years ago. He
Right.
had knowledge. Yes.
I've heard that my work relates a lot to Thoth and the Emerald Tablets, as well as the Hermetic principles. But
Yeah.
I've been learning in my dreams from a very young age, and I've been shown to not listen to other people, because it will be more of a biased understanding as opposed to getting the information direct. So I just find it interesting how it all ends up relating. And again, the number one message that is getting put across is humanity needs to become more spiritual, so that we can actually go back to the moon, so we're not gorillas with shotguns.
So this is why I've been devoting a lot of my time to spreading the messages in the book,
Yeah,
especially on spirituality, and I'm using all my resources to do so.
I think that's great, especially that you were able to get the book rewritten in Chinese and
Yeah.
get it to be a number one seller over there as well as in Taiwan. So congratulations on that. For the viewers and stuff, I think this is going to end up being a shorter presentation today, and so we might end up having to cut this one in about 2 minutes before we run out of time. But hopefully we can revisit and do a second session soon, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, because we were also talking about potentially working on some projects and having those come out as well, right? So
Yes.
we'll talk more about that maybe next time, or but if you want to, if you want, you could say the name of the book again and then let people know where they can find it.
The name of the book is Thiaoouba Prophecy, Thiaoouba Prophecy, and people can type the name of the book on Amazon or Google to find the book.
Very cool. And congratulations again on the success with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and say goodbye.
Bye-bye.